everyone. Welcome to the Compass Ministries live stream. Thank you for joining us today on Giving Tuesday. We're going to tell you about a great cause that we're both a part of here at Compass Ministries. But thanks for taking the time today out of your busy schedule to hear about what Compass is doing. And we want to encourage you to consider giving to Compass Ministries today. All over Facebook, there's a lot of great causes that you can get to, and Compass Ministries is one of those that is here to support missionaries and their families around the world. So thanks for coming today. I am Heather Lewis, and I'm the clinical director of Compass Ministries. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I get the privilege of working with our team of counselors and coaches here at Compass Ministries. And we're joining me live from Tampa, Florida. So with me today is my intern, Anchi Liu. She recently joined us from Taiwan, and we're thrilled to have her join our team. We work with many cross-cultural workers, and so we greatly value the cross-cultural element and the clinical element that she brings to us. So Anchi, welcome today.
Thank you.
And I just want to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Anchi. I was born and raised in Taiwan. So my journey start with Compass will be back into 2016 when I came here for my master's degree in mental health counseling. And that's when I met Amanda. And then through Amanda, I met Ronnie, Vivian, Cindy, and knew more about Compass. So I want to focus more about like how Compass community has helped me, even though I'm not a missionary kids or a third culture kids. But just it's very interesting. Like I've been staying for the United States for about like 4 years, the last term. So during that last term, even though I was only here for a short term, but I can notice something's changing in me. It's in a way like, my culture has this big conflict with the Western culture because I come from more like restrictive, or maybe you can say conservative culture, where it's like you have more open, expressive conversational style. So that hit me really hard. So through the Compass Plus community, I was able to find a safe space to be able to say, I struggle with this. And then, it's very interesting that, you have some other missionary kids in the same group. So that's how I feel like very supportive of them, like me being in that transition stage and also like accepting a new identity of me, myself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So during the time I was here, I was mainly just doing a lot of clinical work with underprivileged population, like domestic violence survivors or human trafficking survivors. So now I'm shifting the gear into a little bit like missionary work. But before that, I spent some time back in Taiwan, and I was actually doing neuroscience. So God has placed a very different type of role for me to explore, but I think everything comes back to the same things, to be a healthy professional. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad and really appreciate that, how God has brought me this far.
Yeah. That's great. And like I said, we're really thrilled to have you on our team. And it's wonderful to know that you were kind of on the receiving end of Compass Ministries.
Yes.
Services, because you were part of the home group.
Yes.
And, as a Taiwanese person coming to American culture, there were a lot of stressors there that you mentioned, and we're working with a lot of Westerners who are going to other cultures. Exactly. And I love hearing you say how you found a sense of community with people who understood those dynamics. It's hard for people who haven't gone through those cross-cultural transitions to understand how difficult it really can be.
Yeah.
The culture, the language piece, just the nuances of society and relationships. Mm-hmm. You were a student here on a master's level getting your degree. And so that's a whole lot of challenging elements.
It's very different.
Very different. Yeah. And so I love that you're on our team. So you're bringing that extra perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like even though I haven't really been on mission or been a missionary in the past, but I could understand maybe a part of the transition process, because I remember when I went back to Taiwan in 2020, during COVID, it hit me really, really hard. Mm-hmm. Even though I only spent 4 years here being a student, I didn't even have a family. I was just me being a single person here. Mm-hmm. And it hit me really hard when I went back home. I was trying to find someone who understood my position, but it was very difficult because people would be like, well, what's the biggest issue? Like, I don't understand. Like, you aren't just having a really good life there. Like, it's also good here in Taiwan. So why you're struggling? Mm-hmm. So it's very difficult to find that balance, also the support of, being able to talk about what's really happening here, to be able to process that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I found my own way, but it's very different. I think that that helped me to understand, just counseling itself, it can help with me with the general stuff I was dealing with, but specifically the experience I had here. I think you have to really find someone who shares similar experience, like people like Amanda, who have been a missionary herself, people in transition in third culture, they would understand that part of the struggle. Yeah, but counseling in general is really helpful, but more like tailored into like missionaries.
Yeah. I just was speaking to someone on the phone last night who was saying they'd lived overseas and came back to the States, and they were saying there's so many well-meaning people in the churches and in our communities, but they still don't quite get the intense struggle of when you're living between cultures and trying to adapt. And so they were really thankful to hear about some of our services with people who have actually lived in other cultures in other countries, because there's just a greater depth of understanding. And for our team here, with our services that we offer, our team almost entirely is built of people who have lived in other countries and cultures and have that personal experience. I know for me, I've really benefited from the community of Compass Ministries. Our family served overseas in Central Asia. And then as a single person, I was also in Kenya and China. And so finding a community here that understands that cross-cultural element, as well as loves the Lord, that we can encourage one another and support one another. And for me, when I decided to become a counselor, and then I went overseas, when I came back to the States, I wasn't quite sure how the Lord was going to bring together my passions of cross-cultural living and wanting to share the gospel around the world with counseling. So I hadn't heard of Compass at that time. At the time, it was just Cindy Duff running Compass on her own. But when my family was going through some struggles through our transition, I was looking for people to come together, like to discuss, how do we get through this together? How do we support one another? And I came in contact with Ronnie, who's now our executive director, and his brother Steve, and we started meeting together to figure out how we could solve this problem of how do we support missionaries and their families when they're returning or when they're going to overseas life. And it was during that time that we met Cindy Duff, who was at that point running Compass by herself out of St. Petersburg. So we met with her for many months and then decided to come on board. Ronnie, as executive director, I served on the board of Compass for a couple of years, and just last year stepped into the clinical director role. So a lot's been changing, but I still love how God has brought together my passions of counseling and missions to support this community. And it's great that our team is expanding, and Anchi is here for the next year and a half. So we're thrilled about what she brings to the table, especially as someone who's from an Asian culture. So I wanted to share a little bit about what Compass offers as far as services for missionaries and their families. We exist just to support these cross-cultural Christian workers through primarily coaching services, counseling, and debriefings. And let me explain that for a little bit. So first of all, we offer mental health coaching, and that's it can be an ambiguous word for a lot of people. The way we use it, as we train our people through the American Association of Christian Counselors, they have a mental health coaching program that all of our coaches get certified with. And therefore, then they can provide a first tier level of support for missionaries and their families. So whether they just need a safe place to talk, prayer, some future goals that they want to work through, those are things that coaches can offer. And that's a great starting point for missionaries who are not quite sure. They just maybe need a safe space to process what's going on. So mental health coaching is our first tier offers of service. And that's free for anybody who's a missionary or their family for 6 months. So want everybody in the audience to know that that's a really viable option for somebody who needs support. The next level of service that we offer is pastoral counseling. And that's where Anchi and others fit in. Our pastoral counselors all have a master's level degree in an area related to counseling. And they also have experience living in other cultures. So we think that experience is very valuable, which we already discussed. But we also value education and being really well trained. So all of our counselors, pastoral counselors, are top notch. We have a variety of people from Anchi from Taiwan, Colombia. We have folks who have served in Costa Rica. We have an Austrian on our team. So we have a great variety of Filipino. So even our team is very multicultural, which is fabulous because we're serving multicultural people. So that's the pastoral counseling level, and we do offer that 6 free sessions. So anybody who's a missionary or their family can get free services for 6 free sessions. And then after that, there's a very low cost of $30 a session. And so you really can't find that level of care at that cost really anywhere. And then the third tier of service that we do offer for those who need it is clinical counseling with a licensed mental health counselor. And this is also someone who has experience living overseas, but has additionally that qualification of a license, which some folks are looking for, that level of care. And that would be for someone who is having more clinical problems, or is maybe struggling with suicidal ideation, which we do even find in the missions community. People are really struggling with severe mental health issues, and we're here to support them. So we really encourage people to reach out if they're struggling, even if they think it's a small thing or if it's a big thing, that there are people out there like Compass Ministries and other organizations where you can find help and support. Yeah. So Anchi, I wanted to kind of ask you, since you've stepped into this role as a pastoral counselor, what are some of the common mental health issues that you've seen so far and that you see in the missions community?
Yeah, I think that we have to look into like 2 different layers, because you're talking about overseas, missionaries, right? So they've been through different cultures. So you have to look at the first layer of like the cultural adjustment. So that part, cultural adjustment, can look very different for everybody, but just thinking about in a way that, because we are not there to travel, we're there to work, and you're representative of a Christian community. So I have seen lots of people struggling with the concept of, I have to be able to really be okay with the cultural difference, which is sometimes can be harsh. It's very difficult, but it's understandable in a way that as missionaries, they go into the mission field, that's like a must, or like you have to do a type of your job responsibility. So that can add extra stress in that. The second layer, which is, we call it personal development. Personal development is something that since you're born, you will hit in different like stages throughout your entire life. So when you're 30s, it will be different than when you hit your 40s, for example. Yeah, so imagine individual going through that personal developmental change while you're overseas in a different culture where either your choice or not your choice, maybe you like it or you kind of like dislike it. So thinking in that term, we have seen many people experience like feelings of depression and anxiety. It might not even be a diagnosis level, but just knowing that their mind is always like thinking about what to do next to prepare them for the cultural adjustment. And also like looking back, thinking like, yeah, I do miss people, the community. So that's why there's a depression, anxiety part that, displays like overall very common in the missionary population. I've also seen lots of burnout issue. Again, that ties into back to the expectation of, you put yourself in this really high expectation in the role. Like, I have to do this. I'm a Christian, I'm representative of this community. So I have to really go out there and help. But without really caring for ourselves first, it's very easy for you to get burned out. Yeah. And also we see a lot of trauma as well, going through like different countries, especially when there's violence or if you heard about it. It can be really detrimental for your mind to really be at peace and focus on whatever you're working at. Grief and loss is also another big part of it.
Huge.
Yeah. Just thinking about, you have more frequent move, more frequent like farewell, comparing to when you were here in the United States. It's a very constant move and constant change in your life. And your mind is like, it's not trained for that. Your mind is trained for stability, for community, but thinking about you are doing that in the opposite way. So it puts your body in like a fight or flight freeze, right? Yeah, so grief and loss is just very big in this community as well. And the last one I think is very interesting is we call it identity crisis in kids. Usually we don't mention that, until you hit your 50s and 60s. But why I say that in kids, because while they're going through their developmental stage, they're absorbing and learning everything. But thinking about under a cultural adjustment level, they're also trying to figure out who they are. At the same time, they're comparing themselves to the peers around them who they might look very different, So they might experience that while they're little, thinking about, I look very different from them, but I think I really like them. Then try to figure out their identity level when they're in that environment.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that's something very common I have seen, with the
Mhm.
clients and just my friends in general.
Those are great insights. Thank you, Anchi.
Yeah.
You're touching on something that's very close to our hearts here at Compass is the kids.
Yeah.
The third culture kids, the missionary kids of these families. And we at Compass want to be a safe place for them as well. When Cindy Duff started Compass Ministries, she had a special heart for the families who were coming to her area, and she wanted to reach out to the kids. She's a play therapist. She's trained me as a play therapist. But apart from play therapy, a lot of these kids have been a part of overseas moves and this cross-cultural adjustment. For many of them, it wasn't their choice.
Yeah.
And they find themselves kind of ripped out of American life, and they have to leave their friends, their homes, their pets, everything. And they're transplanted to some random country that their parents think God has called them to. And often God has. But the kids often don't have a choice in what's going on. And so it can be very difficult for them, especially, up until the age of 18. You mentioned identity crisis. These kids are in their formative years.
Yeah.
And they're moving between cultures and countries and languages. And while it's a great thing on many levels to have that kind of exposure and experience, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It also comes with some extra hardships for these kids. And so what we often see is, high levels of anxiety, depression, or even suicidality in these kids, because they don't know who they are. They're not American. They might not be Asian, even though they live in an Asian country. They love things about America. They hate things about America. They love things about where they're living. They hate, so it's this whole mix, and it can be hard to find people who understand that. You mentioned as a college age student, the difficulty.
And I came here with my own will, and I did so many research on that. Asked people around, consult with the school advisor. I knew exactly what I put myself into, but still I wasn't prepared for the cultural differences. It's just really difficult. Imagine, I know missionaries, you guys have to go through language classes before sending out to the field, right? But that's just a very little part of it.
Yes.
I knew English before I came here, but then there's more. A very funny example is my professor, out of really good intention, she printed out this sheet of different type of language we use to describe emotions. Because in my culture, we probably just have 5 different emotions, how we describe ourselves. So she print all of them and say, here we go. I think that it's good for you to try to memorize all of them. That will be good for you in the future when you're doing counseling. I'm like, this is a lot. How do I know which emotions is identify one that I'm going to talk to my client with? So that's just a small example. It's overwhelming, very different. Even though you know the language, you think you're prepared, but there will still be things that hit you hard in different levels. Driving, learning how to drive.
Yes.
I'm still
you're in that phase here in America.
I got my driver's license in Taiwan, but I've never used it. It's just I don't have to, right? So thinking about in a way how you do that in the United States and versus how you do it in different cultures. So I think it's very interesting how in little details you don't even know, but just in general, if everything just comes up all together, it can be really, really stressful. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And anytime somebody makes an international move, they're giving up not only their possessions, their home, their neighborhood, their things, their car, their pets, they're giving up family. They're giving up their support system, their church, their friends, familiarity with the area, knowing how things work, understanding how things work, understanding how relationships work. And so anybody who chooses to move to another country or culture is saying yes to all of that upheaval. And so it's one thing for adults to agree to that and to knowingly go into it like you did. And then there's a whole nother element for the children, for the kids. And so let's talk for a minute about what parents can do to support their kids through this type of transition. What do you wish you had known beforehand or even during your transition that might have helped you?
I really hope people could be honest with me about being an Asian, how that looked like, what kind of struggles I would face. Because I feel like most people would be very positive and say, you will be fine, English, blah, blah, blah. But then I realized that it's not really just about the English. It's for me in general, this culture, for example, how accepted for them to have an Asian population in this area. I know in
Mhm.
California it's fine, but I don't know about Florida. I don't know
Mhm.
about different states, right? So I think that I just wish someone have that honest talk, and I will be able to be like, I can ask those questions without feeling like judged.
Yes.
Because I know some people feel like, I'm afraid to, be judged. So I might not ask that question.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I wish I have that environment to say, hey, just ask anything you want. We can just answer you directly and honestly.
Mhm.
And I also think that would be very helpful for me to have someone locally. Actually, that's how I met Amanda. It's like we connected through Friends of International, to have someone who is like ease out the transition phase and provide some support, saying, thinking like what you might need, we can help you with that.
Absolutely.
I cannot imagine myself being thrown in here. I mean, I did myself, right? I did it myself, but landing here, I'm like, okay, how should I get from airport to my school? I don't know how to drive. I don't have my phone number yet.
Mhm.
So just think about that little things is like, okay, this is the first entry I got in here. If it's already traumatic,
Yes.
how am I
Yes.
supposed to
Mhm.
survive, right?
Mhm.
So that's just something that I can think about. Someone
Yes.
who I can connect to locally, and
Mhm.
also someone who I can have. It's the same thing, like the community. I can just be honest and ask questions. Say, what could I expect? What should I expect? Anything I should be worried about and prepared for?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Those are great tips. Great tips. And a couple of things to highlight. One, you said having a safe place to really talk about the things that are
Yeah.
frustrating or scary to you. And for parents who have kids who are going through this type of experience, giving your kids a safe place and not just trying to gloss it over. Oh, we're doing God's will and be happy about it and have a good attitude about it. I would say the healthier option is to provide a safe place for your kids to talk about what's hard, to talk about what they're grieving, what they've had to give up, and also the gains. You don't just have to stay in the negative, but room for both. In our debriefings, we talk about the yay duck and the yuck duck, both in the same tub. And that's because these types of experiences, there's positives and negatives. And even if you and I were in one family and we both moved to Taiwan, our experience would be different.
Very different.
Very different. And that's okay. There's room for the positives and negatives, even within a family. So speaking honestly with your kids and not shaming them or judging them if they're having a hard time. So that's a big thing for helping kids be resilient through this type of transition, providing them with information and support. Like you were saying, if you had known ahead of time. So really preparing yourself with information, what to expect, how are we going to do things so that kids have an understanding of what's going on as best as can be. And then you mentioned community. Community makes all the difference when you're in a new place, and Compass is providing an in-person community here for missionaries and their families. In fact, tonight we're having a gathering for missionaries and their families here at our office. So if you're in the area, please stop on by. But that sense of community is very important for kids as well. Now, since COVID, there's a lot more online options for kids, and in the missions community, cross-cultural people tend to really understand one another. And so helping your kids, if they're having a hard time finding in-person community, helping them connect with online options like MK Connect or Interaction International. They offer great online options to connect kids to one another. Here at Compass, we also help with reentry camps in the summer, and those are for high school or middle school, opportunities for kids to come together with other kids who have been traveling the world and are readjusting to American culture. And that's a great opportunity for them to connect with one another, to learn seminars, how to make friends in America, how to understand what's going on around you. So I highly recommend that as an option. You can check that out at Interaction International. And then also for adult third culture kids, like post-college age, we have retreats going on. There's going to be one here in Tampa in March. So there's a lot of opportunities. If somebody is feeling isolated and they need support to either do a retreat, a camp, coaching, counseling. And I neglected to talk about our debriefing services, which Anji and I are partnering in that. Debriefing is a 2 or 3 day experience where you can come here to Tampa in person, and we'll help you process what you've been through. A lot of people do it when they return from a term overseas, and so they choose to focus on that last term. But we can offer a debriefing at any point in your life if you've been a missionary, even if you've been back to the U.S. for many years and you're struggling. Please consider coming for a debriefing. It's just a 2 or 3 day commitment, 2 days for individuals and couples, 3 days if it's a whole family. And we will give you our personalized time and attention to help you process your experiences. And not only that, we will also spend time helping you focus on the future, how to rest and recover. Areas do you want to grow in? What do you need to do to provide a hope for your future?
Yeah.
And that can be really important because sometimes people get to a point where they're like, I have no idea what's in my future. I can't see it. I am burnt out. I don't know what to do. If you're in that place, call us and we can, offer you our different services, a debriefing, counseling, coaching, and get you, on the path to healing.
Yeah. I just want to add, because I know like for some people, even just for me, I didn't notice I was having issue after transition back to my home country from the United States. So I think debriefing is a very good resource. Starting from there, you go through the timeline, looking backwards and looking forward, knowing that, okay, am I still struggling with something? And starting from there, you can be connected through different resources, even through Compass or from like outside resources that can help you to navigate what I'm going to need in the future, right? Because I noticed like for some people, including me, when I went back home, we just like go back to work,
hit the ground running,
and then you didn't even think about it. You're like, oh yeah, I feel really weird, but I didn't even know what's happening. Maybe it's just transition, and then months later, years later, you're still the same. So I think it's very important to notice that if that's happening to you, debriefing could be a really good starting point. You don't have to specifically looking for coaching or counseling yet, but just starting from that, and then we can help you to guide the directions from there. Yeah,
absolutely. Now we also mentioned some things about burnout. That's a common mental health issue that we see a lot, where people have just worked and they haven't taken care of themselves, and then things start to happen that are undeniable. In kids and adults, we often see physical ailments. Stomach aches, chronic headaches, sleep issues, anxiety, inability to relax, inability to calm one's down, hypervigilance, things like that can stem from burnout. Now, let's say somebody's not ready to take the plunge into counseling or coaching. What are some things that people can do if they're starting to feel like, okay, I'm not okay, or I'm having physical symptoms or mental health symptoms? What are some of the self-care things that they can do on their own?
Yeah, I think self-care can be very different for everybody. I know, like for me, I'm a type of person who likes to spend more time alone than spending time with people. I think we can start from there. Are you the introvert or an extrovert? So starting from there, and then you will know what type of resting style will be benefiting from you. And I think the other part is we have to really challenge how we think about self-care. Because I know self-care for some people, especially in the Christian community, it's not a popular topics. We don't envision ourselves going to a mission field think, I can just have fun, or maybe I can just rest. It's very contradictory to being a helping professional, right? So I think that we have to really be honest to ourselves, thinking about what does self-care mean to me, right? And then I always use this analogy with other friends and clients I have, is that imagine like you are using your phone every day. Are you going to continue using your phone when it's like running out of battery, probably like below 20%? No, right? You cannot use it. It's just going to shut down. So imagine your mental level is like that. How are you going to continue working and giving and pursuing people if you're running low on battery? Right. So I always ask people, like, this is also a question I think people can ask yourself, like, how much the percentage I have to have in order to continue working in this community. For me, it might be 50%. For Amanda, it might be 70 or 80 or something like that. So we just have to be aware what is the starting level that will get us into like frustration or, like getting to the burnout that you need to take a precaution step. Then that's when you have to really like find out ways to like, for example, get out to like kind of like leave your job a little bit, but either connect with other friends or family from the community or spending time alone, like I mentioned. So in general, I think that for me, I would be, reassessing how I think about self-care, find out like what is my type of like self-care, and also just do it in general speaking.
I think you're really right on when you say self-care is not a popular topic in Christian circles, especially among the missions community.
Yeah.
Missionaries are known to be strong, resilient, people who get things done, people who have a lot of energy, who are willing to take on hard tasks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the definition of a modern day missionary, but they're not invincible. They're not superhuman.
We're still human.
Yes, still human. Now, we're finding that most missionaries have very high resilience,
Yes.
which is fabulous. That means they can endure hard things and bounce back. So that's really in their favor, if we can speak about missionaries in general, because they often are very strong people and with a strong faith and a strong sense of purpose and adventure and all those things. That's great. However, they're not superhuman. And so a lot of people think, okay, well, I could handle these things in the US, and now I'm just going to move to Africa and I'll be able to do similar ministry there, no problem. But what they're not taking into account are the stress factors of that cultural change, the language change, social roles change, being away from support system, all of those aspects, being away from a spiritual family in some situations. And we have to count the cost and we're not saying don't go. We're saying go with a plan of how you're going to care for yourself, because those stressors are incredible. We often in our debriefings will give folks the Holmes Race stress scale, and it's a helpful tool where you rate what you've endured, the past term, whether it's a year or so. And the average American who takes it usually scores about 200 points. That's about average. And at that point, you can usually maintain a pretty decent mental health situation. But we find that most missionaries function at about an average of 600 or higher on that stress test. And at that point, there's a very high likelihood that you're going to have a mental health issue or a physiological issue that is related to stress. And so those stress levels, just by nature of moving and living in a culture that's not your own, are extremely high. So while individuals might have a system of self-care in the US before they enter into that highly stressful cross-cultural situation, it might have worked here, but that doesn't mean it's going to, that amount of recharging their batteries is going to work in that extra high stress situation. So they might need to bump up that recharge of their batteries and be more intentional about it. It's hard though, because people are living off of support and they're in ministry and they don't feel like they can take time off or a day off. A lot of these people are ministering on the weekends because they're in churches. So when do you take a day off if you're working all weekend? It's challenging. But as a counselor, I would say it's non-negotiable. We want people to stay on the field. We don't want them to burn out. So being very intentional about taking time off, setting boundaries, in your day to day, like, okay, when are you turning off your phone? When are you going to just focus on your family or your spouse, or have that time alone? So, and prioritizing your time with the Lord. That's very important. We're serving the Lord, and it's amazing how we can often neglect our own walk with the Lord. So I would say that's a really practical step. Prioritizing time with the Lord, prioritizing time with your loved ones, getting breaks from ministry that you have permission to take breaks. A lot of what we do is with our clients, giving them permission. To be honest, to rest, to notice their needs and take care of them. It's not selfish. It's being a good steward, I believe.
And you're setting a good example for your kids as well.
Absolutely.
You're telling them, teaching them that it's okay you feel frustrated, but you don't just act out of the frustration. And always leading back to the word, and also like, how can we express this? So this can be a teaching moment for you to connect with your kids as well.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are starting churches in new places, you're setting the DNA for those spiritual communities. So you really should do that example in your own self of resting, having decent boundaries, taking care of yourself and your family, as good examples for your kids and those communities that you're a part of. So also some people find that to ease burnout, they should make time to engage in hobbies that they enjoy, that refresh them. For some people, this can be taking walks outside or hiking or sports, maybe crafting, reading, listening to music, singing.
Doesn't have to be fancy.
No, doesn't have to be fancy.
That I have to remind myself, because I thought self-care was like a vacation. So I think for some people that might have the same concept, like, oh, I cannot do self-care, I don't have time for a vacation. But just knowing, like Amanda said, it can be just a small thing, right? Instead of like a time away.
Right. It can be a walk outside
Yeah.
to calm your mind if you notice your anxiety is creeping up.
Yeah.
You know, you can take a walk outside almost anywhere, you know, and put your phone down. Don't take your screen with you. Put your phone down and just take in the nature around you. It's a God-given tool that we have at our disposal, to take in the nature around us, the sky, and you'll notice there's usually a physiological response.
It is.
When we get in nature that calms our hearts and our minds, and then re-energizes us for the tasks ahead.
Yeah.
So just taking breaks like that. I also like to encourage people with the big three, what I call the big three. That's eating, sleeping, and getting some exercise. So if you're not sure where to start with your own self-care, take a look. How are you eating? Are you just tossing a lot of junk in your body? Or is there room to make healthier choices so that it doesn't negatively affect your health and your energy? I'm not talking any crazy diets. I'm just talking about a balanced meal that's not too high in caffeine and not too high in crazy stuff that's not going to be good for your body. So take a look at how you're eating. Take a look at how you're sleeping.
Yeah.
I know in America, sleep deprivation is a huge problem. And it's not, a lot of times it's because we're filling our late night hours with TV or video games. And it's not like things that are filling us. We think they're filling us because we're kind of relaxing, but it doesn't really rejuvenate us. So take a look at how you're sleeping. If you're not getting the amount of sleep that your body needs, and different people have different sleep needs. So don't be ashamed if you're like, I really function off of 9 or 10 hours of sleep. That might be what you need to do your job well. And just recognize it. And then make that a priority. It takes discipline at first, to really kind of put your sleep as a priority. It doesn't mean you're being lazy, though. It means you're taking care of your body. And when your mind is well rested, you're less likely to go into burnout and to other these physical responses. Also, you know, the physiological aspects of being burnt out can really take a toll on a person's body, but getting enough rest can be critical. So how you're eating, how you're sleeping, and then getting some movement in your day. For some people, they might call that exercise. Again, I'm not talking about you have to go run a marathon. I'm just talking about at the least a walk or stretching, or if you enjoy a sport, to go for it. It doesn't have to be fancy. Like you said, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just getting outside and going for a walk, getting some movement into your day, that's a great stress reliever. And it's self-care. It can become time with the Lord if you're taking a walk. I have known people who found like they decided to pay money for a gym or a fancy like swim club when they lived overseas, and no judgment. If that's important to them, if that's what they need to avoid burnout, if that's what they need to take care of themselves, then that's an important priority. Like you said, living overseas is not just vacation land. It's very difficult. And so to Americans, sometimes we think, oh, well, I wish I could live in Thailand. You know, it's not that it's vacation, or it's hard work living and trying to do ministry in another culture. And on that note, when people come back for home assignment, often Americans view, well, I wish I could have 6 months vacation. It's not a vacation. Home assignment is also very stressful. Imagine you're trying to raise money. Most people, you're living out of other people's homes, which is pretty uncomfortable. You've had to take a long break from school and ministry and your regular life. I mean, it's not an easy task to do a home assignment. It's work. And I think it's time that we kind of change our perspectives on that and support our missionaries, because they need it. And if they do take a vacation in the midst of that, bless them. Maybe you can even bless them with a vacation, you know, and that's one way you can support them, because we don't want to see our missionaries burn out.
I think that's the first step, is instead of falling to that stereotypes. You know, we understand that other people might not understand that, but we ourselves, it's important for us to recognize that this is not what other people are talking about. We're not home for vacation, we're here for home assignment. It's a part of the work. So of course, it's very important to find a community that understands the missionaries and their situation. But if you haven't found them, it's okay. You have to give yourself the affirmation that, you know, I need time to rest, and it's okay. I think that's very important.
When I'm talking to folks about certain things like rest or grief. I always think people need permission, space, and time
Yeah.
for whether it's burnout or grief. We often just need somebody to say, it's okay. It's okay. You need to go rest.
Yeah.
And here's some space. Here's a space to do it. And here's some time to do it. You know, because we don't want to see our loved ones crash and burn.
Right.
Yeah. So you also mentioned that you see a lot of grief and loss in our missionaries and these kids. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So if we're focusing on focusing on in general, like just the missionary population. So I think that, of course, everybody experience grief and loss differently. Like kids might have different kind of grief and loss comparing to adults. But I think that the biggest one is, imagine yourself leaving before leaving the mission field. You were still in the United States. You were like, you know, this type of person. Then you leave that country and you go overseas and you start doing the mission work. But like I mentioned before, I found myself like changed a lot because of the immersion of the culture I was in, right? So imagine yourself, you were always like cheerful and, you know, like playful and you're really positive. But if you go to like a culture where that the emphasize on, you know, be serious, you have to be on time, stuff like that, it can be crashing. It's very difficult to like shift that type of personality. Yeah. So even like that, it can be the grief as well. I noticed some people, they're telling me like, I miss the person I was back in the States. And when we explore more of that, we notice that they're just missing, they're being able to, you know, express themselves like a certain way instead of like this way, because they feel so different here. Yeah. But not in a negative way, but it's just that you changed because you were in a very different culture. So I think that's a very interesting one to point out, because I don't think that many people talk about it. Of course, you went through different kind of grief and loss regarding, you have the loved ones, your family, because you guys were apart. So imagine you're going through the mission work and then something happened in your home country. Are you able to go back and, you know, see them, to be with them, support them? You might not be able to do it. So you just have to be okay with like, I'm not able to go back. Yeah. So that's a big grief and loss as well. Yeah. And then when it comes to you go back to your home country, there's another part of grief and loss that will happen to you is, yeah, man, I really missed the time, even though I was like struggling. But that time when I was overseas, it makes me feel like I have mission, like I have this passion. God instilled a purpose in me. Like you feel that purpose. But when you come back here, you might not feel like that. Yeah. So I noticed that's a big part of it. So a lot of people are grieving that part. It's like, I don't know what's happening to me, but I just miss being in that country and just doing the mission work and getting in touch with people locally. I feel like I have more purpose in that role. Yeah. So that may also be like a part of it. Yeah.
And I would agree with you. I think I heard someone say recently that almost all counseling work is grief work. And I've been processing that. I'm not sure if I would say all counseling, but maybe, because it often boils down to some aspect of grief and loss. And we're afraid to put words to it. We want to just kind of push it under the rug. The fact that we're hurting, or we gave these things up, or we feel like we should be happy about the things that are coming and not more in the things that are lost. But I think the healthiest way forward is to give yourself time, space, permission to be really honest about what you had to give up. You mentioned change. Some of these losses aren't really even tangible. It might be like the loss of who I was in the States, and then I went overseas and I had to give up part of who I was, and now I'm back and I can't get it back.
And you change.
Yeah, you change, because you change every time you go and live in another place. It changes you. So there's a lot of loss in that change. A lot of great things, a lot of gains, but a lot of loss. And so for our listeners, what are some things that they can do just on their own, apart from a counselor or coach, to work through their own grief? Do you have any tips for them?
I do. This is what I did to myself as well. So I call it like the narrative practice, is that, you know, imagine you were going back to your home country and people are being like, oh, I imagine you have a great time there, blah, 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 blah. Of course, you have a great time in general, but there are some challenges and small things that people don't see, right? So instead of listening to them, give them the right answer they want to hear, you have your own narratives. Say, yeah, first of all, be honest with them. Say, yeah, in general, I have a really good time, but I also have some challenges. It can be challenging. You don't have to go with whatever they say. Yeah, it's good. Like you have a good time. Yeah, I do, but also, so it's a parallel statement. They can both exist. That's what I would tell. And second of all, is like when I'm journaling, I will focus on the things that I think that that really bothers me, and I will really tackle on that and pray about it and just journal everything down, because I know even through sometimes, like for example, here, like when you go grocery shopping, you have a tons of choices, right? So when I first got here, I got overwhelmed, but later on, I start to love it. And going back to Taiwan, we don't have that many selection of everything. So I'm just like, I miss the shopping experience of that, right? Just a small example. Yeah. So when I'm going shopping, I start sometimes feel a little bit like, oh, I miss having so many choice of yogurt, that's silly example. But that's a part of me trying to give the grief a space to like think about, yeah, I miss that. Instead of like, it is how it is, you don't have it here, just accept it. Because it's very easy for us to be like that. It's like, yeah, don't talk about it. You're not there. Don't even mention that. What's the meaning if you are not there talking about whatever happening there? I try not to get into that trap. Instead, I give myself the permission to say, yeah, I do miss that time, either talk to a friend or I just journal down and just, when I was doing my quiet time with God, saying that, God, appreciate you giving me an opportunity to be exposed to many different experience in the United States. At the same time, miss that in Taiwan. So I put those narratives in my journal. So I give myself the permission again. Yeah. Permission to grieve. Or also just to, if you have friends and family you trust the most, you can just talk to them, without judgment. And, yeah. So you mentioned journaling, which is something anybody can do. Yeah. On your own, bringing all of your thoughts and concerns to the Lord, but being really honest. Yeah, being honest about what you've had to give up, what you've lost, how you're feeling about it. When I'm working with kids, I often say you got to name it to tame it. So naming these emotions, naming these losses takes them from being just this big burden that you can't really touch to very specific. And once you've named it and you've grieved it, then you can let go of the weight of it. It doesn't mean you're going to forget about the thing you lost. It's always going to be a part of your story. Exactly. But you're not going to carry the weight of it. And so if you're by yourself or a single person, just talking with the Lord is sufficient. Journaling, getting these thoughts out. If you are blessed to have someone in your life who's trustworthy, a listening ear, then that's also a very helpful way to process your grief, to share with them without judgment. Yeah. Hopefully they'll listen well and not judge you. And that would be a safe place where you have time and permission to share about what you're sad about or grieving. And it helps to get underneath the surface too. A lot of times we just stop at the surface griefs, like I had to give up my job or I had to give up my house. That's a good starting place, but it's so much deeper than that. It's the small details of the responsibilities you had at that job, or that people looked up to you, or you felt like you really had purpose and meaning. It's those things beneath the surface that if we never give light to them, they can really weigh us down as losses. And you mentioned something that I see in a lot of missionary families, like often when you're serving the Lord overseas, it's very like on the edge, and it's exciting, and you feel like you have this purpose for the Lord. And then when you come back to the States, sometimes not by even choice, and you're like, oh my, this is mundane. I don't feel alive. I don't feel like I'm living on the edge. I don't feel like I'm serving the Lord. And that can be a real shift. As a counselor, I would challenge that kind of thinking, because I think you can serve the Lord even in the mundane. Yeah. And to find purpose here, but sometimes it takes work to change that perspective. Exactly. And I think that with that purpose, because I think I also experienced that before, it's like I had to shift my mindset. I thought I was always going to do counseling. I thought that was God's gift to me. And that had to shift to neuroscience. Yeah. It's very difficult, but at the same time, I always try to be obedient to the Lord, because I know what I want. It might not be what the Lord wants for me, but at the same time, I was still, on extra time after work, I still try my best to, take classes, learn more about counseling, stuff like that. So I'm not fully like detached from what I love and what I want to do. But at the same time, I was trying to accept this is what the Lord, puts in the plate for me when I come back to Taiwan. I just have to take it. And when I actually take it and really like learn and fully, contribute to this, I learned a lot. And I didn't even know. from the superficial level, I was like, how does that have to do with counseling? That's a very different level. That's just not for me. That was my first reaction, So I imagine a lot of missionaries will go through that. This is not what I want. God didn't, take me there just to go back here to this place, right? So I think that just being able to say a little bit yes and try and see yourself first, and then you'll be more open to that instead of like, nope, this is not. Because if you continue putting that no on your forehead, saying that I'm not going to try it, then you will continue going back to, I'm supposed to be there. That was my mission. That's my purpose, not here. You're never going to make any steps in, progress where you're going back to your home country. Yeah.
Good point. And really the goal of grief work or adjustment is to get to a point of acceptance.
Acceptance,
because that's where our hearts and our minds can be at peace and we can then flourish.
Yeah.
But you can't get to a point of acceptance if you haven't worked through done the hard work of grieving and letting go of maybe your dreams, maybe your ideals, maybe your hopes, maybe the vision you thought God gave you. It might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Sometimes health issues get in the way, or kids' issues need to be tended to, and you have to give up your dream of living overseas. So this can take a lot of different forms. But really the goal is to get to a place of healthy acceptance.
Exactly.
And then finding a new purpose for what God wants to do in your life. And it might look entirely different than what you thought.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can both attest to that.
Yeah.
And I just want to touch briefly on one other major stressor that a lot of missions families encounter is that of trauma. We see a lot of folks who endure trauma because they're going to front lines places where there's instability, there's war, some places where there's food insecurity, lack of healthcare, lack of resources for children, and these missionaries are doing this all without their natural support systems. That their families aren't there, their church families aren't there, their friends. So any tips on, or insights about that trauma question?
You mean like in general, how to deal with trauma? I would say, well, it's very tricky because I know trauma comes in different forms. I have seen clients, they were, after experiencing trauma, they were complaining about the physical pain. The symptom is not totally just about mental. Something can present as physical. So my first tip is always to be aware the triggers, because you knew this happened, and then of course your brain will tell you avoid that. So you might avoid driving that around that area, or avoid going to that area, but it's still the same. Your brain is on that survival mode, right? So I would say just trying to be more aware. So what triggers you, what's not, and then of course you can just kind of like navigate from that point. But then it goes back to self-care.
Goes back to self-care.
So everything we talk about is actually, they're connected. So it's that self-care itself, like it really goes down to like how you take the time to recharge your mind. You can either choose to, watch TV. Some people choose that, and it's actually a good, well, sometimes it's good to kind of like get away, distract yourself from certain stressors. But if you do too much of it, science proven that your brain is going to change the way it functions by just watching too much TV and too much screen time. So you don't want your brain to be like that. You want your brain to still function in a healthy way, and your brain has the capacity to overcome all those stressors. So self-care is the second very important step after being self-aware, is that really taking time for you to either talk to a friend, connect with family, or even find your therapist. Or there's a lot of like online resources, for example, devotions targeting on hurting feelings. So I would say that how I deal with trauma is not really about trauma itself, it's about the symptoms that you experience. So instead of tackling like, oh yeah, I experienced trauma, this is too hard for me to deal with, let's not talk about it. I would rather start from, okay, so do you experience any physical pain, mental frustration? Let's start from there. And then you can, step by step, when you are like tackling all those symptoms, then you're able to kind of detangle the effect or the influence trauma had on you.
That's great. So if anyone has endured trauma and you're having difficulty managing it on your own, there are resources like coaches and counselors that can help you through that process. Now, before we wrap up, I want to ask Anchi a couple of questions because
Yeah.
given her Asian background, we have a lot of Westerners who are entering into Asian cultures. And so do you have any tips for them since you're bringing
Yeah.
the Asian background?
Yeah, I would say before you head out to the overseas, make sure that you establish your community, your support here, because that's definitely very needed. I think the counselors in Taiwan, they're wonderful, they're great, but again, they might not share the experience as you guys do, especially in Asian culture. We don't really have that many missionaries sent out to different countries. We have like short-term missions, meaning that they are out to supervise and just kind of see how people do things, but it's about like 1 month or just weeks. That's it. Yeah, so establish your support community is very, very important while you're here in the States. And second of all is to be aware of burnout issue, because for most Asians, we don't have boundaries. I'm not speaking for myself, general. It's just like in general, it's not a bad thing. It's just like cultural difference, right? Yeah. So I know here you have a specific time spent on your family, friends, but in most Asian culture, they're intertwined. You can have friends at work and whatever. But just to be aware, if you need more time for yourself and your family, communicate that to the local workers that you connect with. It's always good for you to be clear in the beginning, then kind of like, I don't think I can do it. Because I've seen people, they struggle with that. They're like, I had a hard time communicating to local workers that I need more time for my family. They feel guilty and shameful for asking time off. Yeah. And of course, taking advantage of the language classes, because I think that even I speak Mandarin Chinese, right? Sometimes I speak Chinese to my people. I got misunderstood and I misunderstood people. So I think the language part itself is very important, that be prepared that you have to be communicating more to the people locally and to really make sure that they understand what you're talking about. Don't feel ashamed about like, yeah, I take classes for 18 months now and I should be fluent. No, there's no such thing like that. Like I still have a lot of things to learn in English and I have my dictionaries all the time. So just so you know that it's always, if you put yourself as a learner perspective, instead of like I'm a perfect missionary, I have to do everything good enough. If you put yourself in a learner perspective, it can provide you more, space to learn and grow instead of like put you down, shame and guilt. Yes. Yeah. So that's the tips I would give you guys if you ever want to go to Asia to serve.
And if you have more specific questions for Anchi, you can find her here through the Compass website. Anchi, I'm so grateful that you joined us today and have joined our team for the next year. I know I've been learning a lot from her, from Anchi, from her expertise and also her background. But I'm grateful to you for tuning in today. Thank you for joining us on this Giving Tuesday. We at Compass Ministries are so grateful for your support and your prayers. If you are inclined to give financially to us, we'd love to have your gifts, and you can do that through the website or through our Facebook page. You're supporting a great cause, and we're here in Tampa and providing services to people all around the world. So our role in helping the gospel go to the ends of the earth, I think, is really key. We're trying to keep our missionaries healthy and whole, keeping them healthy so that they stay on the fields, and also helping their children so that the effects of their cross-cultural living turns into positive benefits for them and not something that breaks them or hinders their growth. So we do care about the whole family, and thank you for your support. We're very grateful that you joined in today, and stay tuned because there's more great speakers coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.